name is Andrew Kipe, and I'm with Red Cloud Securities. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Tony Reda, who is the president and CEO of Tectonic Metals and also the founder on that title list as well. I've got just some quick disclosures, and then I'm going to let Tony head right into the presentation because we want to make sure that every presenter has some amount of time. But from the Tectonic Metals perspective, you can see their disclosures on page 2 of Tony's presentation. From Red Cloud Securities, I would like to highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation or purchase to sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this presentation does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should make their own investment decisions based on their own research. And with that, Tony, I'm going to pass it off to you, and I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Red Club, for the opportunity to present at this at the Oktoberfest. And thank you all to the attendees that have taken time out of their schedules to allow me to tell you a bit more about Tectonic Metals. We do trade on the TSX Venture and on the OTCQB. There is, I believe, an opportunity for Q&A, and please reach out to ourselves directly. We love hearing feedback from all of you. So our contact information is at the end of the presentation. Tectonic Metals, for those of you that don't know, was incorporated in 2017 as a private company. We conducted ourselves as a private company for 2 years. And the people behind Tectonic, yes, I'm one of the founders, but I also share that with 3 other individuals, which I'll speak to in a moment. Essentially, a lot of the key people behind Tectonic Metals were also involved in Kaminak Gold Corporation and the discovery of the Coffee Gold Project. We took that from discovery right through to the delineation of plus 5 million ounces of gold in the Yukon Territory of Canada. We also raised $165 million to fund that endeavor, and also we submitted the Coffee Gold Project. We were dipping our toe in the permitting front. We produced a very robust feasibility study, and in 2016, Goldcorp acquired us for $520 million. We're not hanging our hat on that accomplishment, but I mentioned that to give you sort of a bit of a background on Tectonic Metals. This company was founded by people that were involved in Kaminak, but more importantly are here to sort of do it better, if you will. The shift in the game embodies a different mindset than I think most junior mining companies bring to the table. We look at everything from ESG, local community involvement, partnering with local First Nations and Indigenous groups, and also building a company around a business model. We are governed by a business model, not by one particular project. Yes, we love our projects and we think there's a lot of potential, but this company was built around a business model and built around a team. The team and the people are the ultimate drivers for value creation in any industry, regardless of whether it's mining or technology or biotech. So we actually handpicked the people involved in our company. We didn't pick our best friends. We actually picked people that embodied what Tectonic Metals was about, and also shared a passion of finding the next gold mine. So I'll speak more about the shift in the game on the subsequent slides. That is a bit of a background on what we're all about and what we're here to do. There is on slide 2 here a forward-looking statement disclosure slide. Please take the time to read this before making any investment decision. It is here for a reason, and it is located on our website. As I mentioned, the shift in the game, yes, it's about the team behind Kaminak. We do have experience in raising capital and making discoveries and advancing projects right through to production. I mentioned the business model. It's what governs us. It looks at risk. It doesn't just look at upside. Every CEO or every company always touts the upside, but no one speaks about the downside. In our industry, in the exploration space, 99% of it is centered around risk and failure. A lot of finding the next gold mine is not an easy endeavor. So if you start with risk and you manage that, our belief is that the reward will come, and we try to do that at the very onset. So one of the things that we do slightly different is we've decided to work in Alaska, and we've decided to work specifically with some of the largest native corporations in Alaska. One in particular is called Doyon Limited. So in Alaska, there's different types of land ownership. There's federal land, there's state land, there's private land, and there's native-owned land. And the reason why we've elected to work on native-owned land is because the process of advancing a project is much more streamlined, providing that the native corporation is actually pro-business and pro-mining. And Doyon definitely is. They have a long tenure and a history of doing transactions with in the resource space. So in addition to working on their land, we've also acquired projects on their land that actually have production agreements. Yes, these are early stage projects. We felt it was necessary to define the goalposts at the onset for all parties involved. Even if we were to go to a major mining company or a potential joint venture company, having that production agreement in place is extremely critical, and doing it at the onset. In addition to that, these production agreements also have mandated ESG components, local hiring, community engagement. We even have donations to a nonprofit foundation regarding scholarships. Again, looking at all the different sort of aspects of the evolution of a project from acquisition right through to production and into production, we step back and we look at, okay, yes, we know what the prize is. Like, let's delineate or find a mine, but let's look at all the typical challenges and let's try to find the win-win for everybody, not just for the Tectonic shareholders, but also for our stakeholders and the communities. And this is a much bigger game that we're playing here. We're not a one-trick pony. We're not going after one shiny outcrop or object or property. We're here actually building a company. Hence why we started with the team, we started with the business model, and now we're actually building a foundation to launch from with the native corporations, Doyon more specifically, and we're executing on advancing our projects. To that effect, we've raised $7 million in one of the worst, so-called worst years, the pandemic, the coronavirus, as we are all now experiencing. During that stay, we raised the $7 million. We brought in quality shareholders, Doyon being one of them, and also strategic resource funds onto our shareholder registry. We've executed 2 drill programs, and I'll talk about those drill programs in a moment here, but we've also executed 4 surface campaigns on various projects. So very much a busy year. There's still a lot more assays to come down the pipeline, so stay tuned for that. In regards to the team, what you see here, yes, there's a lot of faces. Yes, there's some of these individuals were involved in the Kaminak success. But in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, we bolted on capacity to those former Kaminak executives. And when we did that, we looked at what would define or make a good team. We wanted to punch above our weight class. So we approached a gentleman by the name of Mel Benson. Right now, he's the longest serving director of Canada's largest oil and gas company. He's also in the Indigenous Hall of Fame. He's very well known and respected for his philanthropic endeavors, but also his ability to find the win-win for industry, corporations such as Suncor and Tectonic, but also within for Indigenous groups. He literally was born in the bush. He's a member of the Alberta Cree First Nation, and he was self-taught, worked his way up, and actually was a driller with Exxon. And from there, he went to Stanford. Exxon funded his education, and then he ended up managing offices or the operations in West Africa and in Russia, with over 4,000 employees underneath him. So I have nothing but respect. I'm honored that aside from Suncor, Mel sits on the Tectonic board. So he's been a huge addition. We've also brought on Curtis Freeman, who's a resident of Alaska, and more, just as important, he has 40 years of geological experience. He has several discoveries under his belt. If we're going to tackle exploration in Alaska, you need a guy like Kurt on the team. So we covered our Indigenous capital raising experience with Mel. We covered the exploration side with Kurt. Rob and Ira, also geologists, formerly with Kaminak and the CEOs of Kaminak from 2005 right through to 2013. We also brought on Mick Roper, who's formerly with Agnico Eagle Mining. He's been with them for about 15 years. 40 years of experience involved from discovery right through to actually operating a mine and being a former CEO of a junior mining company. So he's been brought on board. And I'll also mention our former VP of Sustainability at Kaminak, Alison Rippon Armstrong. She has been involved in permitting of 9 mines in northern Canada, and that involvement has been with industry, representing First Nations, and also representing the federal government of Canada. A huge asset to our team, not just on the environmental front, but also on the sustainability, community, ESG, all those aspects that sometimes get forgotten in, when a company is going through sort of creating the perfect company, if you will, or in the advancement of a project through to production. With our team, we take our ownership very seriously. We have 29% in ownership on a partially diluted basis in our company. Our upside is predicated on our ownership. So your wins are our wins, and your losses are all losses. You know, and as a publicly traded company, it's not always an easy road. It's not like a straight line from from the side of a mountain, if you will. There's going to be ups and downs, and we recognize that. That's all part and parcel for being a publicly traded company. You know, rounding out the shareholder ownership, we also have, I said, Doyon Limited, our native partners. We've invited them earlier this year to be a shareholder of Tectonic, and they gladly accepted and came in at a very healthy ownership. They're now our single largest shareholder. There's not too many companies that can tout that they have Indigenous shareholders. So again, part of our business model was, working on native-owned land, the production agreements that involve ESG scholarships, local hiring, and now we've taken that one step further and actually have them as shareholders in our company. We have 35% ownership amongst various resource-focused funds, very respected. So although we have 90 million shares outstanding, it is a fairly tightly held. As I mentioned earlier, we did raise $7 million, roughly $7 million Canadian earlier this year. That a big chunk of that capital was deployed this year to execute those drill programs. We do expect to end the year with just over 3.5 million Canadian, so a very healthy treasury to go into 2021. Okay, the 2 projects that we drilled this year, one of them was Tibbs, the other one was 70 Mile, and I'll talk about 70 Mile in the subsequent slides. Tibbs is located in the Goodpaster district. It's about 35 kilometers away from Northern Star's operating high-grade gold Pogo mine. They're highlighted in purple. Yes, Northern Star has acquired ground right next to Tibbs. It was surprising in 2017 when we moved into this area. Tibbs was our first acquisition. It is on state-owned land, but nobody was around there since 2017. All this ground that you see in light gray, the majority of it has been staked. With Northern Star's acquisition of Pogo, there has been a staking rush that has transpired. It is important to note that at Pogo, when Northern Star acquired that asset, they've actually doubled the global resource estimate in just 1 year. That highlights the exploration potential. And right now, Pogo is sitting at roughly 6 million ounces, the global resource that is, with an average head grade of just of around 10 grams per ton gold. So this is definitely a high-grade gold operation. Earlier this year, we announced the acquisition of additional ground in the district, Carey Creek, as you see there, Mount Harper, and Maple Leaf. Now, Carey Creek is situated on native-owned land, more specifically Doyon-owned land. So we've actually married native land with state land at Tibbs. And again, we're all pulling on that one lever, and that's to find a mine. There's not too many instances that I know of where companies have married state land with native-owned land. And the ultimate goal there is, again, collaboration, working together. We now have, very, probably 25-kilometer long land position. And like I said earlier, we did drill Tibbs, and we'll talk about those results in these slides here. So we're looking at Tibbs proper right now. You can see there's no shortage of high-grade gold, whether it's gold in soils, gold in rocks. We've delineated over 21 targets, us and some of the previous explorers. I will mention that this property was actually discovered by the same company that discovered Pogo in the mid-90s. This is a Pogo analog. Some of the zones more specifically are like such as Gray Lead, which was targeted by the same discoverers of Pogo. They drilled intercepts such as 28 grams or 5.4 meters. They drilled primarily from surface to about 120 meters vertical, trying to find a low angle vein. They didn't find that low angle vein, but what they did find was a high angle vein carrying sometimes ounce per ton material. They did walk away from this property, not fully testing all of the zones, nor did anyone, them and another junior, test the western portion of the property. The reason why I mentioned the low angle veins is because Pogo was discovered as a low angle vein, and that's the only type of that's the only type of vein set that they mined up until 2013. In 2013, no one had this property. Well, in 2013 was an important year because Sumitomo, the previous owner of Pogo, actually updated the Pogo geological model. They intersected a high angle vein carrying high grade gold, and they've now stated that that's the interpreted feeder to the low angle veins. So we have the high angle veins. This year, one of the biggest findings for us, yes, we drilled high grade gold, but we actually observed, we believe, low angle veins. And we now have an interplay, we believe, where the interplay between low angle and high angle occurs, which is similar to Pogo. That's where you get the blowout in grade and widths. The other thing that we did this year that was different than previous year is that we targeted the western portion of this property. The western portion is hosted in gneissic rock, and that's the same host rock as Pogo. Stay tuned for soil results to come out from that campaign targeting not only the gneissic rocks, but we also targeted mapped low angle thrust faults. Again, if you're trying to find Pogo, there's certain key, or Pogo style mineralization, I should say, there's certain key characteristics, such as the low angle veins, the geochemistry, and the host rock. And we've done that this year for the first time ever on that property, and we are pretty excited to get those results. And so stay tuned for that. If we zoom into Michigan proper, you can see that we've drilled roughly, I believe, 11 holes. Every hole has intersected gold mineralization. There's no shortage of high-grade gold. Our highlight hole from 2019, 6 grams over 29 meters. In 2019, we only drilled 4 holes into this zone. And this was the highlight. We went back in this year. You can see 12 grams here, 5.5 grams, 19 grams here. And you can also note this historical hole drilled by a junior mining company in 2011. They intersected 57 grams over 1.5 meters at the very top of the hole, 7 grams over 3 in the middle, and it bottomed in mineralization 2.6 grams over 9 meters. Now that diamond drill hole actually ended in mineralization at a 250 meter vertical depth. So we have evidence to support that Michigan does have depth extent. We have evidence to support that Michigan does carry high grade gold. And this year, as I mentioned on the previous slide, we've observed low angle features. So we think where the low angle and high angle intersect, that's what's controlling the high grade mineralization. And to take that one step further, at the end of the season, we launched a IP geophysical survey to hopefully delineate those intersections between the high angle, low angle. We're going to take that interpretation. So we're going to take that geophysical data set, which completed just a couple weeks ago. We're applying an interpretation. We do intend to announce that. And if we get the mineralization drilling highlight, if we do take that was my dog. If we do take the mineralization and it correlates well with the geophysical survey, then we believe we're off to the races. So diamond drilling is the next sort of campaign at the Tibbs property. We have strike extent, we have depth extent to work with, and we do think that Michigan has the potential to yield something significant. In addition to Michigan, we did drill test Lower Trench and Wolverine, and the rationale for those zones were that Michigan and Lower Trench and Wolverine, we believe, was all once connected based on a lineament analysis. Also based on the geochemistry of these zones are identical. They have the same DNA, whereas the southern portion of the property has a slightly different geochemical signature. The highlight at lower trench, 10.7 grams over 3 meters with a broader interval. This was only a couple holes. Again, we're doing a fence of rab holes, trying to find, if these zones have the potential for grade and scale. This needs much more follow-up. The purple triangles that you see upper trench here, they're greater than 5 grams per ton. So at these zones, we have up to 135 grams per ton in rock samples. This area has never been glaciated. So, trying to, again, find the source of this high-grade material is going to be extremely critical going forward. We did drill test Wolverine. We did not have success there. We believe this soil anomaly, which is the largest soil anomaly on the property, we believe it's significant, and we believe there's been some soil creep. We targeted the ridge top. Unfortunately, we did not intersect any gold mineralization. We still cannot explain this robust soil anomaly, so this does warrant further work. The other property that we drill tested is called 70 Mile, situated on native-owned land. This is one of the projects that we have that production agreement on that covers the entire gamut. As I mentioned, even reclamation is covered in that agreement. What excited us about this property is that it is one of the few remaining greenstone belts in a first world jurisdiction that hasn't been fully exploited. If you want to find a multi-million ounce gold system, there's no better place to look than greenstone belts, whether it's the Abitibi, Meadowbank, Meliadine. There are key places to look for multi-million ounce gold systems. And most of them, like I said, in North America have been exploited. So this one's been sitting dormant with a native corporation for over 20 years. So again, we target large scale as part of our business model. We do target large scale opportunities, 40-kilometer long gold belt, different styles of mineralization, soil anomalies here in the middle that on the ridges that haven't been followed up. That flume 8-kilometer trend started out as a spot anomaly. They placed a grid over it and they flushed it out. So that's an opportunity. We have high-grade gold in drilling, 187 grams over a meter at Flanders. There's some ounce per ton material. So again, evidence for, a much larger system. The previous explorer delineated the soil anomalies via shovel sampling. Not always the best tool when you're dealing with permafrost. Also, you tend to get tired when you're taking 1,000 shovel samples. So we looked at this project, acquired it in 2018. We've only done 2020 was our third season on this property. The first season was like, okay, what are we going to do differently? We're not going to go back in and do the exact same thing that the previous explorer did. We brought in some new tools, a modern-day Midas Mag geophysical survey to help validate our high-grade shear zone model. We brought in a power auger soil sampling tool, which can go much deeper than shovels. We brought in a top of bedrock sampling tool that can go up to 40 feet deep. Wherever that top of bedrock interface is, it stops and collects the sample. And believe it or not, we brought in a RABJO, which is not a new tool by any stretch, but it's never been applied to this property. And I believe we might be the first ones to actually bring the RABJO into Alaska. So with those tools, off we went. We had our geological model here, the high-grade shear zone model. We believe the tension gash veins that were outcropping at surface in the creeks and valleys, where the mineralization was exposed, is what the previous explorers were targeting. We wanted to target the major shear zone. So off we went. This is now a historical 1997 soil.
Tony, yeah. I apologize, but we're going to have to wrap up here. We've gone over. So,
sorry.
Look, thank you very much for the time and the update, and we look forward to the results that will be coming out through the remainder of this year and into early next year.